So I'll call the East Lyme Board of Selectmen meeting to order. Today's December 7th, day that will live in infamy. We've already had the Pledge of Allegiance, so maybe we should have a moment of silence to those who served our country in Pearl Harbor 75 years ago today, and all those thereafter. Amen. Additional agenda, consent items? Are there any?
No, I do not have it.
Did I have one? No, I didn't. Delegations. Anyone wish to speak to the commission this evening? Anyone at all? Okay. Approval of the minutes, regular meeting of November 16th, 2016.
Move to approve the minutes of the meeting of November 16, 2016 as submitted.
Second.
Motion and second. Are there any comments or corrections? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain?
Abstain?
There's one abstention. I trust Washington, D.C. Was great with your kids.
There was, but you have an eyewitness sitting at the end of the table.
Oh,
Oh, great.
Victoria. You were down in D.C. with Mrs. Hardy.
Yep.
Great. You had a good time?
Yeah. I did that.
Did you stay for the duration? I heard
Yes.
others didn't. Okay.
I stayed
Good.
the whole time.
Victoria, thank you for running our audiovisual again tonight. Great service. Thank you very much. Worthy of a coin. A consent calendar.
Move to approve the consent calendar for the meeting of December 7, 2016 in the amount of $4,389.80.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any comments? Just look that over. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Almost forgot my script. First on our new business agenda is the JLUS, the Joint Land Use Study presentation. As you know, this town was engaged in a JLUS study for quite some time, maybe as much as a year or so, but we've been talking about it for even longer as we were getting funding wrapped up. And we have tonight the final fairly short presentation on the study itself. Rick is here from Matrix group that did the study. So Rick, I invite you up to the podium, or we kind of have to scramble here because you probably need to be on mic, right? And we also need you to work your computer. Is that the case? Okay, good.
Good evening to the Selectmen, and thank you for having us here tonight. Sure, we're on the.
I have keeping up on here. Is everything up there?
Yep.
This is where. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not getting any signal. It says everything on my end is on.
I could just tell you that.
It's just projector, power on, mute on or off. So mute is off. Yep, it's already on. So when you turn it on, it goes off.
There wasn't anything on there that you really needed to have a picture for, so I'll just be colorful.
All right, I'll turn it on.
Okay, well, if you could see the first slide, it talked about who's all involved in this. Gary Goschel was the project manager for the town and was the grant manager. This was funded by a grant from the Office of Economic Adjustment, which is out of the Department of Defense. And so they provided the funding, although the town provided in-kind support for that grant through Gary's services as helping to coordinate that effort. The Joint Land Use Study was put together using a committee of all the different representatives that are part of the study as we went forward. And my name, by the way, is Rick Rust with Matrix Design Group. Celeste Warner, some of you may have met before. She's the project manager for this. And tonight she had a shareholders meeting that's been scheduled for about a quarter. So she couldn't be with us tonight, but wishes to pass on her hello and thank you for seeing us tonight. As far as the joint part of what's called joint land use study, it was a joint effort. This was, as you can picture where the installations are, Camp Niantic and Stones Ranch. Camp Niantic is all within the town of East Lyme, but Stones Ranch is actually in 3 towns, East Lyme, Lyme, and Old Lyme. So all 3 towns were part of the committees that looked through this process, as well as representatives from the state, environmental, military affairs, Department of Transportation were all part of that. And then also the military was part of that. So for the Connecticut National Guard, as well as the local installation representatives were part of the process going forward. When we're looking at this, we want to highlight what is a joint land use study in a broad sense. A joint land use study is a collaborative process. Working with all these different organizations, we tried to come up with a look at what are all the issues that need to be addressed and look at how those might be solved and come to a consensus about how we can do that with that whole group of people that were involved that I was talking about. It's also a body of information. You know, the world doesn't stay the same, and so this document will provide you information on what areas might be exposed to higher levels of noise and might not be appropriate for certain types of things, but it helps to inform your decision making in the future as you might have different things come up that you want to consider. It also provides a set of recommendations way forward. You know, what are some things that we should all do together? But the important thing is it is a study. That S at the end of it is truly a study. This is not a new regulation. You're not being asked to adopt something tonight that will become law or become in effect. What it is kind of a task list of things that all those different organizations have agreed to move forward on jointly with your concurrence tonight. And that includes some taskers that were given to the military. So this isn't just about what the towns can do for the military, but a joint effort where they're part of this equation as well. So if there's something in the study that requires some future change in how the town does something relative to land uses or other types of things, it would go through your normal process and have a normal hearing in front of the public where you can consider that in more detail later as each individual piece came up. As far as the documents, there's 3 documents. There's a background report, which is the hefty 200 plus kind of document. That's all that background information we talked about that'll help you as far as informational items as we go forward. There's a joint land use report, which is about 100 pages. And the big difference in that is it provides the action items, that is what's been agreed to. And then it provides a short summary of that big 200-page document. So we're getting it more fine-tuned for you. And then last in front of you, you got a 4-pager. So if you can't carry the 200, the 100, you go down to 4. But that gives you highlights of the main things that were covered as far as an executive summary. What are some, just give you some ideas, some key things that came out of this. This joint land use study was very similar to other ones we've done. And Matrix has done 45 joint land use studies across the United States at this point. So we've done a lot of National Guard bases. We've done a lot of the other services as well. And we kind of brought that look as an additional piece to this. But really it was driven by the local members of our different committees as well as the public input that we went forward with. There were 3 public workshops that were held. They were out at the installation in one of their facilities, but the public was invited to come in. The public helped us to identify the issues that should be addressed as part of the study. They helped us talk about what are the different strategies that they thought we should look into. And then there was a final public workshop in August that talked about the overall draft plan. And there was a 30-plus day period for the public to provide comments, and those were all responded to and addressed with our committee members going forward. Some key changes in this one, just like many other joint land use studies, are communication strategies. How do we better talk with each other? That's important on the military side because they often have military members that change out, go to different posts. How do you keep that long-term communication open? We find a lot of bases, they say, yeah, we've got a great relationship with our community, and the community says they have a great relationship with the base, but that's because 2 people are in the Rotary Club together. They both attend Chamber of Commerce meetings, and so there's nothing written down exactly. So this is helping us to look at what we might do. Part of it, for many places, is how do you better inform the public about activities that are a little atypical? most people get accustomed to the sound of the different range operations and things they may have going on. But when you have something that's surprising, that's where you get calls to yourselves, and you need to have the answers. And so there's strategies about developing better social media outlets, web page information, brochures that talk about what they do at the installation. Talked about looking at vertical height obstructions. As you look at cell phone towers, telephone communications, et cetera, in the future, because we have low-level helicopter flights that come in to land at both Camp Nyack and Stones Ranch. So how do we make sure that we don't put a big pole in the way that puts some people in danger long-term? We had some localized issues. Stones Ranch Road, there was discussions about spillover lighting and some dust, and so there's strategies in there that are meant to help to better address that going forward for some very specific issues as opposed to the big, broader vertical obstruction ones. We also look at how we can incorporate some of these compatibility ideas into your local planning documents. So looking at your zoning code relative to perhaps some noise and noise attenuation things that might be required in some small areas if you were to develop. Also looking at your plans of conservation and development and how you might want to incorporate compatibility concepts into those as you go forward to your next update. Again, we're not approving anything tonight, but some ideas are in there about what you might want to consider next time you do that kind of an update. So that was, I wanted to keep you short because I know you got many other things to get to tonight. But as been mentioned, we are at the end of the process. We've gone through the 3 public workshops, have published the public draft, have gotten comments and rectified those with our committees, and the final documents have been published. I'd have the nice little website up there for you. StonesRanchJLoose.com is where the documents can be found. All the handouts as well as all 3 documents I spoke of tonight can be found on that website, and that's a good way to get the other information if you'd like to follow that up for further understanding. But at this point, we were coming here tonight to answer any questions and looking for your members to give a nod that agree to accept the study and to move forward in good faith on implementing those as may fit into the needs of the community going forward. And then with that,
Terrific. Thank you, Rick, for coming up from Jersey, right? New Jersey, is that where you hail from?
well, this morning I was in Florida, so
Oh. I don't know why you'd leave.
Yeah.
popping up
I would
and
have
down.
accepted a phone call. But I appreciate you being
No, it's important to
here.
be here for us.
And this is an important project, and as you pointed out, we're not implementing any of these strategies tonight. We're simply acknowledging that the study is now complete
Yes.
in its final format, and we're accepting that. And we need to accept that in order for, I guess, probably for the grant money to be released and for the finality
The finale.
of the entire project, to acknowledge that it's over. It will go to our planning and zoning for future consideration, as well as other boards and commissions, including this one, as we move forward with town planning and things that go along. But I'll ask the commission if there are any questions or any concerns.
I'll start while
Sure.
Roseanne drinks her water. Was there anything you found surprising? You mentioned that you'd not done a number of studies like this. Was there anything that differentiated this area? Were you addressing pretty much the same kinds of concerns you do elsewhere?
It's kind of like a meal you're putting together. We had a lot of the same ingredients, but how they all came together in the local context makes them a little bit different. So, I mean, we've had places that have had light issues before. We had some issues described about trimming of trees and the crossover with bat habitat and how those things mix and match. So that was a little unique in that mixture of concerns and how that should be addressed. The communications thing is broadly, most joint land use studies have communication fixes that we do as part of this. And it's just to help better keep everybody on the same page, be it your conversation with the base or actually conversation with the community so they're better informed about what's going on. So I think that localized mix and a few of those things like the tree trimming, shielding of lights along Stones Ranch Road. There was some discussion about a sidewalk along a roadway where they have some convoy operations. So that was a unique one where we're putting in pedestrian paths to protect the public from that traffic. That was we've had convoy issues before, but that was a unique spin on that.
Is there anything in the list of recommendations you came forward that you think will be particularly difficult for the town to address?
No, there are a couple that talk about needing the state's buy-in on doing some things. There's the discussion about real estate disclosure. As you know, the state has a checklist you go through when you transact property, and in many places we try to get military compatibility as one of those items. Be surprised how many people move into a nice home next to a base, and then they're surprised Monday morning when they are shooting next door. So trying to make sure that people are aware of what they're, not that we haven't really found any evidence that this stops people from buying the properties, because people always have that concern, but it does provide a better informed buyer and a happier customer at the end.
I see you mention also revised municipal harbor management plan requirements to address military compatibility. Is that with regard to security zones, or?
There's Camp Niantic has a waterfront area. Most of the recommendations talk about better signage on the actual military property and perhaps some fencing in some locations, but still respecting the rights of the public to shell fishing and water activities. But from that management plan standpoint, looking at how we might better protect and notify mariners of certain areas and staying off the shore in certain areas that aren't allowed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a few. Just following up on that, so I'm ex officio to the harbor manager, and so that subject comes up a lot. I've heard back and forth things that they don't want people in the certain area off in the water. Part of it, they don't want moorings there. They don't want people, shell fishing there. What was your final consensus of what the military wanted with that area?
It was kind of that balancing between the public's right of access and the ability to protect the installation. So there was discussions about how to better observe the coastline, how to put fences in a couple minor spots, and how to better sign and make sure the signs are maintained. We often have in coastal installations, the signs are put up, but they deteriorate quickly with the saltwater corrosion. And so making sure those signs are well maintained, that they're regularly posted moving forward. I believe there are other organizations looking at different postings out in the water, but that's not moving forward with this.
Okay, so you kind of insinuate more of its shoreline protection
Yes.
as opposed to the buffer in the water.
There's discussion in there about that buffer area, but it's not an exclusion zone at this point. It's more notification.
Okay. And just one other question. I look forward to reading this, and thank you for doing this. The question I have for you is, a lot of this is focused on what the townspeople kind of request of the military, which is obviously very important. Was there anything that the military specifically is looking for the town to do?
There were some issues that came up, for instance, on trespassing in the wooded areas, like on Stone's Ranch, how to work with local law enforcement to better protect areas that are routinely problematic. And so some things the military can do to better protect those areas, but also some better cooperation. There's some discussion about kind of an Eyes on Stone's Ranch program where you can better inform the public about what to look for and who to call if you do see something happening that's on the military properties. So there were some items like that. The vertical obstruction protections to make sure you don't put anything too tall in the corridors the helicopters operate in was another one that would be a community item. And there's some small areas off Stone's Ranch that have some noise exposure, where if you were to put a house right in that specific spot, you might need to look at doing some sound attenuation to make the home more comfortable to live in. But it wouldn't be an exclusion of the ability to build there.
Okay. Well, was there any discussion about the road that goes around Camp Niantic? The road that goes around Camp Niantic, is it? I've heard mixed things. Is it partially owned by the military, partially not? Was there a
But
Pine Grove.
yeah?
It's Town Road.
there's some.
But there was some issue with the property.
There's two private properties that access through the installation.
Yeah, I guess
And
that's.
so
Right.
there was not a resolution at this point. It's a strategy to continue to try